William said to his brother, look, I've had enough of you. I'm off to seek my fortune elsewhere. He left Springbank, went right around the corner and built his own distillery next door, just to annoy the family. But he was quite good at his job, and he began distilling in 1872 until he eventually retired in 1919, when the distillery was sold to a company called Glengyle Distillery. They were later dissolved to the Allied Distillers Group, who of course eventually became Diageo. But at this point in time, the whisky industry in Campbeltown was in complete collapse. From a peak of 37 distilleries, believe it or not, down to just one, being Springbank. So the new owners only managed to keep the distillery open for about 5 years, eventually closing for good in 1924. And when it did finally close, it was stripped of all its equipment to make a bit of extra cash, and it was left as an empty shell. And it stayed that way for the better part of the 20th century, being used occasionally as an agricultural store or as a vehicle garage, and at one point it was even used as a rifle range. So pretty much anything but making whiskey. The reason for its restoration came about in the late 1990s. The Scottish Whisky Association were playing about with the whisky regions, your Highlands and Speyside, etc. And they decided that because at this point Campbeltown had two distilleries, being Springbank and Glen Scotia, we no longer counted as a region. Now this really upset Mr. Wright, our owner. He was a direct descendant of the Mitchell family, so he was very much aware of Campbeltown's historic and cultural significance in the whisky industry. He was even more upset when he could look across the Clyde estuary and see that at this point in time the Lowlands had three distilleries and they were still being counted as a region. So he basically went, right then, if three distilleries is all we need, then three distilleries is what we're going to have. So in 1999 we bought the building back, and a year later we began our restoration work. Now because when Mr. Wright made this decision, he was in a bit of an angry mood. He kind of forgot that we didn't have any money. So most of the equipment over here is second hand, and we've Frankensteined it together to give us the distillery that we have here today. Now the distillery is Glengyle Distillery because it sits in Glengyle Road, and it's the only distillery in Glengyle Road, so it's the Glengyle Distillery. That can't change. And the original whiskey that came out of here was also Glengyle whiskey. And so when we bought the distillery back, we wanted to buy the name back as well. But the figure we were quoted had far too many zeros in it. It was way too big a number, and we weren't prepared to pay that. So we had to come up with a new name for a whiskey. That's why you have the Glengyle Distillery, which is in KILKERRAN Whisky. Now KILKERRAN is an abbreviation of the old Gaelic name for this side of Campbeltown, and that was Kinloch Kilkieran, which loosely translates to being St. Kieran's Church at the end of the loch, which is a bit of a mouthful, so we shortened it down to KILKERRAN, taking the Kil from Saint or for church, and Kieran from Kieran's name. St. Kieran's Whisky, basically. That's why we have the Glengyle Distillery, which is in KILKERRAN Whisky. We later discovered that at this point in time, the people who owned the bottling rights for Glengyle were the same people who owned Glen Scotia. So there might have been a bit of politics, a bit of sabotage involved. So we learned our lesson from that and bought up all the other distillery names in Campbeltown. So they may have two, we've got 35. So if anybody else wants to build a distillery here and use one of the old names, they've got to ask us nicely, and we'll decide how many zeros are going to go into that figure. But that gives us our three distilleries, which makes us officially recognised as a region once again. Now, here at Glengyle, we are only in production from September through to December, because we rely on Springbank for a couple of things. The first thing is the barley. We haven't restored the malt barns here at Glengyle yet, so we rely upon Springbank to produce barley for us. Now, because the distillation team at Springbank have nothing to do if the barley's coming over here, then they leave Springbank and they'll come over here and do all the distillation from Glengyle, as I say, from September through to December, giving us our three distilleries, securing our status as a region. Not going to be a problem for too much longer because there are three brand new distilleries coming to Campbeltown over the next few years. Very exciting times for everybody.
They do tend to malt stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they mix the vehicles and everything.
Well, that's affectionate.
Yeah.
Okay.
happens is the rake will go round and it pushes the malt through the hole. And it gets pumped into the draft pan, and then the caramel top, but your water, your third water, your holding tank.
Oh, it's great, huh? But every got a high level, it feels enough.
Oh, yeah, I do. Watch your eyes. Watch your eyes. Told you. Don't put your face in there. It's a lot of CO2 coming out of that. Watch it. I'll burn your eyes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's a pussy one.
But we're drawing this down to actually use. Feel the heat from that?
Yeah.
That's a natural heat. So that's actually the heat from the yeast.
Oh, it smells good.
And that's the idea for...
Hey, you can see that's bubbling away down at the bottom there. Oh, that's strong. Yes. Now, although there is this motor up at the top that's spinning the blades around, there is nothing mechanical that's moving the liquid at all. That is purely the reaction of the yeast getting off that carbon dioxide.
Litres, when you pump it into your wash still, when you boil it up, create vapour, up the swan's neck, up the lin arm, okay, at the shell and tube condenser, it's going to come in here. This is where you know it's full of impurities, okay, so it's oily, heavy, but a really good body of alcohol, about 20 to 25% ABV. We're going to take that, we're going to run it down, we're going to bring low wines into the low wines in the fence receiver, okay? Then we're going to run it through.
Let's go around over there, behind on the other side. Carry on the other way, please. Okay, is bus driver here? No. No. All right. There you go.
Thank you, brother. It's a mess.
Sorry guys, maybe you're gonna find some char right over there.
No, it's beautiful. We want
That is what